This is the Marriage Podcast, and I'm your host, Alexandra Stockwell. I'm a physician turned relationship and intimacy expert, and I specialize in showing couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships. I myself have been married for 25 years. My husband and I have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing relationship. If you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place because I will show you how. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, this is Alexandra. Welcome back to the Marriage Podcast. This episode, I've been so excited about it because it's going to be with Jen and Ray Stoney. In case you didn't catch the first interview I did with them, I'll have a link in the show notes. But they said so many things that I had so many questions about and wanted to go deeper. So I'm so happy that you're back and we have an opportunity to do that. Jen is known as the Irresistible Love Coach. She is an amazing coach for women. Why don't you describe all the things you do? I could actually do this, but I love hearing it with your voice and your juicy energy in the process. So please tell us whom you serve and how you do that, Jen.
Yes, thank you so much for having us too, Alexandra. This is so fun. So I love what I do. So I coach women on finding the soulmate of their dreams and magnetizing the life far beyond their wildest dreams, as well as allowing more pleasure and love into their life in the most effortless, easy, flowy way possible.
Magnificent. And Ray, anything that you want to say about who you are in Jen's life or otherwise?
Yes, I'm a little bit less bubbly, so I'm more the stuff at the bottom of the drink that just kind of hangs out there, but also could be very, strong when it comes like to alcohol. But I'm somebody that kind of likes to support Jen with what she's doing. When I'm not watching the kids, she's watching them, and I'm out doing something. And then when she has her phone calls and things, we'll kind of play Legos downstairs and things like that to pass the time and hang out this winter. But to kind of talk about Jen a little bit, she doesn't just help with this. She helps. She's been helping people for a very long time. She'll talk people off a ledge. Her family will call her and ask her different things about life. So she's a life coach. She's a love coach. She just loves helping people, and it's something that she always likes to do. So I like to support that and fit all my stuff in between. I sell truck parts from here at home, so we're kind of a tight unit here. So she's not on a phone call, I'm working. And then when I'm not working, she's always trying to help others. So that's kind of a little bit about us here. And thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So the two of you are both entrepreneurs who you've worked from home before quarantine, right? Like you've been working. Did you work outside of the home, Ray, before the pandemic?
I did for a little while. I did finance at an auto dealership about an hour away from here. And then with the shutdown, it actually gave me time to focus more on some things here, selling truck parts mostly from out west. And then it gave Jen more time to not have me gone 60 hours a week, to kind of work on building her business through, just social media and gaining, new clients and just building her stuff. So it's been kind of cool, as tough as a shutdown is, and nothing good about Corona for sure, but for our family, it's really helped out in many different ways that we didn't anticipate.
Okay, it is so amazing to hear the two of you talk, and I'm inclined to ask, and how do you navigate that to entrepreneurs, and what are the transitions like, and does Jen check with you before scheduling a call? And I have so many questions just about how to make the day-to-day life collaborative and successful. But before or instead of going into that, I want to go back to an earlier moment in your history. If you haven't listened to our first interview, please make sure to. In it, Jen describes being an alcoholic, being a mess in her words, meeting Ray and being inspired to clean things up. And then you got married, fell in love, got married, and had a really tough 2 years. There was infidelity. Ray cheated on you. You found your way back together. I think people can relate up to that point. I'd love for both of you to talk about what it was like from whatever kind of pain and misunderstandings and hurt to being able to turn towards one another, commit, recommit, and commit more than ever before, and ultimately go on to have your two incredibly cute, dynamic little boys and a life which, as you've just conveyed, sounds rich and collaborative and mutually supportive. Like, will you describe some of the elements in that moment where you pivoted into recommitting and making what had happened be something that really served you both?
Yeah, I would say really for a while, I wasn't talking about it because I knew the affair was happening. And so I wouldn't tell anybody because I was really ashamed. I felt like a failure. And so when I started talking to somebody was at the point where I had bleeding ulcers. And when the bleeding ulcers happened, I knew I had an endoscopy and colonoscopy. I knew that I had to go to somebody and talk to a professional and stop, lying about it. And that really started opening up. A few months later is when Ray filed for divorce and walked out. And that was really when I hit a rock bottom. But even rewind a little bit, as hard as all of that was, I had a beer an inch away from my mouth while the affair was happening. And Ray took the beer out of my mouth and said, no matter what's happening with our marriage, you've worked way too hard for your sobriety. Don't throw it away. And he took the beer out of my mouth and he threw away all alcohol in the house.
So, Ray, does that mean that your love never wavered? Like how you felt about Jen was never the issue? Because I think the reason I'm asking this question is I think many people think if someone has an affair, it means they don't love their partner. And I don't actually think that that's true a lot of the time. And I'm wondering what you would say about that.
Well, I have a lot of things I can say. I mean, sometimes when you're not getting along well, or you're getting along poorly, or there's many issues, it's easier to get confused. It's easier to turn to other people. As far as my love for Jen, that's something that, part of it that drove us apart was when you don't feel the same love. You're not sure who you're in love with anymore. But love is what also brought us back together. And that was one of the toughest things, is kind of getting back together. It's one thing if you're like splitting and you never get back with that person, but to kind of re-glue everything back together was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to do.
Oh, yeah. So much harder than splitting after that pain, because you don't really have to face it. You just have to get past it, but you don't have to go through it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what had happened. And then, go back to my family and then her family. And then the first Christmas where I'm back with the family. And then some welcome you in, other ones want to have a 35-minute discussion about different things and then revisit it later on. And it gets a little bit, it got really tough, and it still is now, but not like it was then. But
How long ago was that?
That was in like 2014, 2015. So to make it a little bit more interesting is basically the first Christmas that I went back to her family's house, we were also letting her parents know that we were pregnant. So not only were we back together, but that there was a baby. And then that's when some red flags came up, like, hey, what are you guys doing? This is the first we've heard of even anything. And then that's the second thing that they heard is, we're going to have another grandkid that's named after you, more than likely. So it was a little bit confusing for a lot of people. And it was the toughest for us, for sure, because you had to go back to each other's family and be like, hey, that person that I was really mad at, and said all those things, let's just forget about some of those things. And then so we've had to kind of rebuild our entire 50-person family, back together, not just people on an island that were, deciding to get back together after a while or something. So it's one of the
that is so important because, of course, when people think of the impact of divorce, mostly they think of the two people divorcing and any children if they already exist. I know, Jen, aren't you like one of seven,
One of seven of a strong Italian Catholic. So
Yeah.
the opinions is in the high education level is, yeah, so they had opinions. They did, but they were very.
And do you have a big family too, Ray?
I don't. On my side of the family, we didn't really talk about it a whole lot. I have a sister that kind of moved away and comes back every once in a while to hang out, and two parents, a couple grandparents.
So it was simpler.
My side was a little bit simpler, but it didn't make it easier because it's something where it was harder to go into a bigger family. It was harder for me to come to, to kind of come back into it. And Jen was very accepting, of course, after, years of kind of working on it, I guess you could call it, time working on each other, separately. So nothing about it was easy, because sometimes the silence is even weirder when you're like, I don't know what my parents are thinking. I don't know what anyone's thinking, but the transition was easier, I guess, overall on my side, no matter which.
Thinking of the extended family, it makes me wonder, I don't know if the two of you have considered it yet, since your oldest is 5, right? Do you think about what you'll tell your sons at some point? Or will you tell them anything about the more challenging times, which came long before they would remember because they weren't alive yet?
Weren't alive. I would probably leave that up to Jen. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that parents don't tell kids. And I also feel like, not that our situation matters compared to other couples, but I know that many couples went through a lot of hard times. Sometimes it's after the kids are born, but it seems like no matter who you talk to, there was a time where they almost split up, or they were going to split up, or dad had to sleep in the basement for a couple of weeks, and I mean, I don't know if it's something to dwell on, but it's something to where I'm trying not to hide it from anyone, at this point, if it helps whatever situation, but I usually leave that stuff up to Jen as far as what she wants to talk about.
My great-grandparents, my mother's mother's mother and her husband, who were born in the late 1800s, my Nana Ethel, she once told me, actually she told my mother, who told me, that she cried every day for the first 10 years of her marriage and went on to have the very best marriage she knew of all of her friends. And I remember when my mother told me that, I was probably a teenager. It wasn't an important moment. I don't actually remember the conversation in which she told me. But when I've had challenging times in my marriage, I've been married for 25 years, and in those first 10 years, I definitely thought of that. And it was kind of like an immunization to give me perspective, because nowadays, so many people, we go into marriage expecting to be happy, and if we're not, expecting to split. And there was just something about my Nana Ethel having said that I personally found helpful. I'm not giving you advice on what you tell your children. I'm just like broadening the conversation, because I've actually never heard anybody who has, I know many people who've recovered from affairs, but I've never heard what they do or don't want to tell their children about it. So it's a very interesting question to me. Do you have thoughts about it, Jen?
I guess to me, it's the story is written in a best-selling book. It's out there publicly. So if the kids ever have questions about it or want to know more about my career, or the women I help, or why I do what I do, I'm always very inviting. I was raised by 2 very loving parents who were always so honest and open with us and never kept anything from us. So I really appreciated that transparency growing up. And so if they have any questions, sure. But will I just like sit them down one day and be like, guess what happened? I guess I don't see that happening. But if my sons were to be going through a really tough time in relationships, I feel like there's so many different things that we can relate to them with, and let them know that there's beautiful light at the end of the tunnel, that everything will be okay.
It's really amazing. And I want to ask, as I ask everyone, and I asked you last time, given how much we grow in the context of relationship, what's something you've learned about yourself, Jen, as a result of being married to Ray?
In the first interview, as we talked about, I really learned how to be loved and how to receive love, because he is so good at it, loving the hot, messy craziness of myself that I wasn't always open to loving or accepting of myself. And he really taught me how to receive his love. And the other thing that I learned from him is his commitment and his loyalty. And it's really amazing, because when we came to the end of our divorce, I'll never forget, I was sitting at work, and I was in the auto finance industry as well. And I received a phone call, and he was like, "What do I need to end this divorce?" And the thing is that we had been through the discovery process. We had spent thousands of dollars on attorneys. We had gone to court. We went through a lot. And I go, "You started it, figure it out." And anybody who knows us,
Oh my God. Okay.
because I knew in my heart, I said, I knew I had a customer who nobody knew about my love life, and she was a psychic, and I didn't know that. And so I was putting on her license plate one day in the dark, and she looked at me and she goes, "Just so you know, I know," and my wedding ring was on, by the way. And she goes, "I know that your husband had an affair, and I know that you're separated right now, but I just want you to be prepared. He's going to come back and ask you to reconcile. And so you need to start getting ready to know your answer." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Yep. So just start thinking if you want it or not, and start knowing." And I'm like, "What?" And then several, months later, I get this phone call. And so I had been doing praying and work on it. And so I said, yes. And he goes, "Well," and I'm like, "Well, figure it out." And so 2 minutes later, I received a fax. And Ray, if anyone knows us, he's like the turtle and I'm like the rabbit. When I received the fax over in 2 minutes with his signed signature of termination of divorce, it was just the energy that I felt and the commitment, the recommitment of us dating again while separated. We were separated for 2 years. It was beautiful. And it was really when I learned how to let go control. And so another thing he has taught me is how to let go control and really trust him and let him be his own person.
Ray, how is that to hear? And what have you learned about yourself as the result of being Jen's husband?
Well, I get to learn new things every day. I'm kind of more of like a keep everything inside person, and she would be like a rainbow on the outside. So she likes to teach me about what I'm feeling, even if I don't know I'm feeling it, and maybe how to feel it, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got to learn a lot more about the emotional side of things. Whereas, especially in my family, and just what I like to do is just kind of either not think about it, not talk about it, or just kind of move past it. And so I still use a lot of the move past it techniques now. Kind of one of my mottos here that Jen always seems to not appreciate, but I like to take one day at a time and just keep moving forward. And then she wants to talk about where we're moving forward to, and where we've been and things like that. And I don't look in my mirrors a whole lot, and so sometimes I think that helped her too by not dwelling on things that don't matter as much. But I don't know as much about the zodiac stuff as I should, but we're both Virgo, so I think that alone makes things very confusing, because we have a lot of similarities. So sometimes if we'll look at a pile of clothes, and I don't want to pick it up and she doesn't want to pick it up, so we don't have the person that will pick the clothes up. We're both just looking at it. We get to learn how similar we are rather than sometimes how different we are. You always find differences really fast, but there's a lot of similarities we bump into as well. That can be good. Hey, we both like the same kind of music, which we don't, by the way. But sometimes the differences and the similarities are what kind of brings it all together.
That is amazing. And Jen has talked about how you make her laugh all the time. And oh my God, you are so funny. I don't want to override a single word by laughing out loud, but thank you for sharing wisdom wrapped in humor. It's so easy to digest it that way. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And I want to ask you, Jen, you've said that through being in relationship with Ray, you've learned to love yourself. And on the one hand, I completely follow what you're saying. It's very real. It's very clear. And on the other, I'm picturing that someone is listening and wondering, wait, how exactly do you learn that? And since this is your expertise, I wonder if you could express something that you did or you think about, or how did you let the love in?
Well, when the separation happened and when I was alone in a condo by myself, with myself, and like on the floor crying many nights, what happened was I realized I gave my power away. And I was treating Ray as my higher power. And so if he didn't validate my self-worth, I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel loved. And that's a big problem, because when we give people our power to basically dictate our worth, our value, our lovability, you'll never be happy. Like, we're human. We mess up. Like, I could come in and have a bad day and not know it, not know that the other person wasn't doing well, and just kind of walk past them and not care about them. It's not because I don't love them. It's just because like I'm in my own world, right? And so I really learned, and it's come up a few times before where it's like I'm looking at him going like, it was really bad during that time of I wanted him to tell me I was beautiful all the time. I wanted him to tell me how amazing I was. And so what I learned is that if I focus on me and what I bring to the table and what I need to work on, and then also drape myself with love and pleasure and beautifulness. I mean, it's just like I tell my clients, you go in the shower and you're going through your to-do list. That's not a really fun shower. You go in the shower and you like drape your body with love and you just bless yourself and you hug yourself. You get out of that shower, you feel like a sexy goddess. You feel amazing, right?
What kind of showers are you taking?
Yeah, where are you, Ray? Don't you want to get in on some validating?
I just use soap in my shower.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I love you. So it's really a beautiful thing, because when we learn to love ourselves in all moments of the day and stop and just hug ourselves and hold ourselves, we're putting less pressure on our partner to do that. And it's just a beautiful process, because, I can love my past, and I have a very colorful past, and I look at pictures from my past and I laugh at them, because I'm just like, oh man, how Jen was she hilarious then, and I don't like fixate on all the ridiculous things I did. Instead, I'm just like, it brought me to who I am today, and I love who I am today. And that's beautiful. Like, that's amazing. And some days I fall short, but we're human. And so it's an ever-going process.
That just seems like the perfect segue to invite you to talk about your offers, how people who are listening can find you, and the ways to work with you, because what you've just described, it is irresistible. And I'm sure there are listeners who want a piece of that in the shower and out.
Yes. Yes. Well, yes. And I would invite anyone who feels really connected and drawn to me to work with me with the VIP private. That is really where you get 24/7 access to me. That's where you get weekly coaching calls over Zoom. That's where you can contact me at any time, and you get access to all my programs as well. So if you feel like I'm your person, contact me and we can see if we're a good fit. And then also I do have the one-on-one soul magnetism activation sessions, which are just juicy and beautiful, and we can really just have some fun. And those are over Zoom as well. And then I also have my free Facebook group with lots of trainings, lots of pools on there. And it's just a beautiful community with amazing women. And that is called Irresistible You Facebook group. And I love going in there, and it's just I adore it and love it. And I share some really intimate things in that group that I don't post about. So I invite you to join if you want to go in there, and it's free. So
okay, amazing. I'm part of it, and I just love when it pops up in my feed that my friend Jen Stoney has posted in the Irresistible You group, because it's always something either quick and fun or deep. It's a wonderful group. And for anyone listening, all the links will be in the show notes. And I want to thank you both so much for coming and sharing your story and doing it in a way that's so generous and so relatable. Sometimes I think we can feel like we're different from other people and therefore feel like no one's going to understand. I've certainly had a phase of that. I actually used to be an extremely private person, but I came to understand that sharing my story is a gift that I can give. And there's a way that both of you speak. It's like we're just sitting on your back patio with or without masks. And it's just so accessible as you share such incredible hard-won transformation and joy and love in your lives. And I'm so grateful you've come and shared that with our listeners. So thank you so much, Jen and Ray.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And maybe we can do it again sometime soon and have even more fun.
Okay, well, I am so grateful for that. Knowing you were hesitant to participate, that warms my heart.
Yes, thank you so much, Alexandra.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Marriage Podcast. Please rate and review the show on iTunes. It really makes a difference. And if you have a question or a comment, reach out to me via my website at alexandrastockwell.com.